This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio, a review of Symphony of the Seas this week, a Royal Caribbean Oasis-class ship, and staff writer Richard Sims here with Cruise News. Jumping right to him now. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug Parker.
Kicking things off with Carnival Cruise Line getting kind of new cruise ships this month.
More accurately, two new to Carnival Cruise Line ships, I think, because this is sort of a weird story. It involves a cruise line division going away and her ships being transferred, and yet in the grand scheme of things, not much is changing at all. So years ago, and I may get some of these details wrong because it's a very complicated history, to be quite honest, but Carnival Corporation bought P&O Princess Cruises, and part of that eventually was broken off to be P&O Australia. Until recently, P&O Australia had 3 ships. Now, one of those ships, the Pacific Explorer, has been sold to Resorts World and will be sailing over in Asia. The other 2 ships, the Pacific Adventure and the Pacific Encounter, are being absorbed into Carnival Cruise Line, sort of the same way they did with the 2 Costa ships a year or so ago. And remember, this is all of these different cruise lines are under the Carnival corporate umbrella. You really, if you really want to dive into this, go to Carnival Corporate's page and look at all of the fleets that operate under the umbrella of the Carnival Corporation. Anyway, here's the thing that's kind of interesting about this. On the one hand, P&O Australia is gone. So, they will no longer, will no longer have an Australian branch. They won't be sailing out of there. The Pacific Adventure and the Pacific Encounter are going to become the Carnival Adventure and the Carnival Encounter. So it's just interesting to me that this is it's much ado about nothing, essentially, because really these ships are going to continue sailing. They're going to continue sailing out of Australia. And the only thing that's really changing is they'll go into a short dry dock and get some rebranding to, fit with Carnival. I'm assuming that they will probably get the livery, but maybe not, because I believe they're going into wet dock, which means they probably won't get the livery. So it'll be interesting to see what changes they make, and then they'll be rolled out, and they'll be basically sailing from the same place they were before. So big change and not a change at all.
And speaking of P&O Australia, which is randomly never in the news, but it seems to be this week, we have new details about a lawsuit involving another one of their ships that formerly sailed under their flag.
Yeah, this is originally this was a P&O Australia ship known as the Pacific Aria. Back in 2017, the Aria set sail and wound up sailing right into the path of a Category 5 cyclone named Donna. Passengers on board had a pretty miserable trip and eventually filed a class action lawsuit about what they dubbed the cruise from hell. And that was picked up by all the media. Mm-hmm. Everyone referred to it as the cruise from hell once that got out there. They claimed that the company should have known better than to pursue this particular itinerary and that they basically put everybody in danger. P&O insisted at the time, hey, listen, when you sail, you take certain risks, including inclement weather. We thought that it wasn't going to be as bad as it was, that kind of thing. We've heard this before. I think it was an NCL ship also had a situation where they sailed into a storm and later claimed, hey, you take your chances when you sail at sea. Eventually, however, maybe seeing the writing on the wall as to how bad this class action lawsuit could get, P&O and Carnival, basically, because it's the Carnival Corporation, settled for around $2 million. So the lawyers ate up a nice share of that, of course, but the passengers are still going to wind up getting about double what they initially paid for the cruise. They're getting, I believe it breaks down to something like $995 for per passenger for what they paid, and then another thousand or so for to being compensated for what they were put through during the cruise. So that lawsuit's been, like I said, that's been percolating for years. So long that Aria is no longer in the fleet. In fact, I think Aria was then sold to Aegean and became the Aegean goddess, and that never went anywhere. And I believe the ship is now sitting waiting to be scrapped.
You're wrong. I just got off the ship. I was in the Middle East on it. It's Celestial Journey now.
Oh, that's the Aria?
Mm-hmm. And the old Holland America Rhine Dam.
Wow. So everything goes full circle.
Yeah, it sure does. And we have another norovirus outbreak to report.
This is the 9th outbreak of the year and the second to take place on the Coral Princess within that same period. So far this year, the Coral Princess has had 2 outbreaks. This time, about 80 people, mostly guests and a few crew members, fell ill. While norovirus tends to be more of an inconvenience than a serious illness, I mean, certainly it can knock you out and it can do some serious damage. But for the vast majority of people, it involves, some gastrointestinal distress, let's say, which is the nice way of saying, you got it coming out of both ends. But it tends not to be horribly serious. But it's serious enough that it's something that the CDC monitors. What's perhaps concerning here is that we're only halfway through March and we've had 9 outbreaks. Last year, in all of 2024, which was one of the worst years in the history that CDC has reported on these outbreaks, there were total 18. So we've already passed. Well, no, I guess we're exactly at the point of being halfway to where we were last year at the end of the year. So, hopefully that's going to slow down a little bit. The other thing we should keep an eye on moving forward is multiple outbreaks. And what I mean is, this is the second incident aboard the Coral Princess this year. Holland America's Eurodam also had 2 outbreaks so far this year. So we're seeing sort of an increase in the number of ships that are experiencing multiple outbreaks. And, that can be due to all kinds of things. It could be that maybe it lingered after one sailing and, whatever. It could also be just, coincidence that these are the 2 ships that people happen to get on who were suffering from this. As always, it's really important to remember that while we hear norovirus and think cruise ships, that's largely in part because of the way it's reported in the mainstream media. And the truth of the matter is that you are far more likely to get norovirus on land than you are on sea. But y'all have heard me go on this lecture before, so I'm just going to cut it short right there.
This next story had me on a real roller coaster ride. So we had a story that had a happy ending eventually, but maybe not entirely.
That's the perfect way to describe this story, Doug. So Jason and Tammy Merritt were celebrating their 26th anniversary. Happy anniversary to them. And they were doing it aboard the Carnival Magic, which y'all know I love. It's a Joe Farkas ship. It's gorgeous in its tackiness. Anyway, it was a great trip for them, except for one tiny little detail, and that is that Jason's luggage never arrived in their stateroom. At first, they just sort of assumed it was late. That happens. We've all been on a ship and our luggage hasn't gotten back to our room and we're waiting and we want to go to dinner and nope, our luggage isn't there. That's basically what they thought at first. But the trip went on and they never got their luggage. They get home and their air tags tell them, hey, guess what? Because they had air tags inside the bags, which I think is such a smart thing and everyone should do. Their air tags indicated to them that the luggage was still on the ship. Now, that seemed kind of odd. They're home, their luggage was never found, and yet it's still on the ship. Carnival had done supposedly gone around asking people, have you seen this luggage? Nothing. Well, as it turns out, they find out 20 days later that their luggage had been either mistakenly delivered to the wrong woman who was in a room down the hall, or she saw the luggage in the hallway and decided to take it. I've always thought that's a concern. Anyway, she was on a back-to-back sailing. So the Merritts contacted Carnival and they were like, our luggage is still on that ship. And Carnival's like, no, that's not possible. We looked, it's not here. Guess what? It was there. They did eventually get their luggage back, but a bunch of stuff was missing. And what really kind of frustrated them was that despite the luggage being found in this woman's stateroom, She was allowed to disembark and nothing was done to her. Carnival offered the Merritts compensation, but it seems as if Jason and Tammy aren't really too thrilled with what they were offered because last anyone had heard, they were basically planning to pursue legal action against Carnival for the way this was handled. So, there you go. That's I always worry about that, about your luggage ending up in the wrong room.
Well, hopefully that's a case they will win.
Oh my God. Took me a minute, but I see what you did there. Case. Suitcase. No, Doug. You cracked me up.
And it looks like the mayor of one town just can't win when it comes to cruising.
That's one way of looking at it. So a few months ago, the mayor of Nice over in France, his name is Christian Estrosi, and he proposed putting a ban on cruise ships. And when he was doing so, he made a little speech in which he called those who sail on large ships, and I'm quoting here, low-cost clientele. Now, I kind of think that probably got lost in translation. I have a feeling that what he meant to say there was low rent, as opposed to low cost, meaning he was basically calling cruise ship visitors kind of trashy. Apparently, he wanted to sort of put a ban in place so that large ships couldn't come because they don't spend as much money. They get off the ship, they wander around, but they don't spend as much money as might people who come from either smaller ships like luxury yachts or who come, via plane, whatever. So he basically wanted to put a ban in place. But apparently, cruise ship passengers spend enough money that the local businesses from whom they take that money, they were unhappy about this move. So now he's backpedaling it a little bit. And he's saying, well, okay, maybe we will let one ship with 2,500 guests or fewer dock, which of course has those who were cheering his initial stance against cruise ships ticked off. So on the one hand, he's trying to do right, or what he thinks is right by banning these cruise ships to sort of prevent over tourism. And he gets flack for that. Then he says, well, what if we do this? And he gets flack for that. From the start, there was no real details as to when this proposed ban might go into effect. And it's even more unclear now. So this is definitely a story we'll just have to keep a watch on and sit back and see how it unfolds.
And today's question comes from Alex up in Boston. If you got a question, shoot it our way, Doug at cruiseradio.net. Alex says, I know that Virgin Voyages' new ship will be coming out soon, but I feel like we haven't heard anything about it. Any updates?
Alex, you could not have timed that question better. Okay, truth be told, we held your question for a couple of weeks, hoping there would be some news at some point, and now there finally is. I have been asking this same question because I am on the second sailing of Brilliant Lady, the new ship, when it leaves out of New York. And I've been saying to myself, seems weird that we haven't heard anything about, changes they might be making. So we did find out, this is breaking news that we just got today, that they are revamping entertainment on board. They've got a bunch of new shows coming. The one of the things that was interesting about this press release was that it literally refers to Brilliant Lady as, and I'm quoting here, our final ship. There have been sort of hints in the last year or so that perhaps they were going to do like four and done, and this seems to confirm that. I don't know, but when you make a press release and you call it your final ship, that makes me think. But let's talk about the entertainment they've got planned a little bit. They're rolling out a bunch of new shows. One is specifically designed because of an itinerary that they're going to be doing. They are adding an Alaskan itinerary to the Brilliant Ladies schedule. Now, when you go to Alaska, of course, you can get some inclement weather. And Virgin is very, very well known for their big deck party. And so they are now taking that deck party that's always been outside and they are moving it indoors. So they're sort of, making sure that they can still do this very, very popular party, but do it in a venue where you won't be freezing when they do it. Some of the other shows they're doing, it's interesting. They sound like a slight twist on the conventional shows that we know. A lot of cruise ships, especially now that Norwegian has been dialing back the number of Broadway shows they do, most ships do what we call a jukebox musical, a collection of different songs from different artists that are strung together. There's not really much of a story there, if any, holding it together. And some of the shows that Virgin is rolling out are along those lines. Like they have Red Hot, which is basically tracing Virgin's 50-year history of, Virgin Records. They have a lot of hits that came out on Virgin Records, and this show is designed to sort of focus on those. They have another that's described as a time-traveling comedy that's a wild ride through history with Dr. Victoria Vortex and her time machine. So that's called Out of Time. Those are both being done in the Red Room. The other really big entertaining space that they have on the ship is called the Manor, and they're introducing some new shows there. And I'm not going to get into details of all of them, or we could be here for a while, but one that sounds really interesting to me is they're doing something called Murder in the Manor. And that's exactly what it sounds like. They're doing basically one of those fun murder mystery shows. This one is described as that guests will be tasked with assisting the hapless investigators who seem to keep missing the most obvious clues, and together they'll help a plain Jane figure out who killed her rock star twin sister. It sounds like something out of the old show Sweet Valley High that was based on a series of books about two sisters. One of them was good, and one of them was sort of, a troubling rocker. So they've got that. They also have a show that's going to be about duets, and they have another that's being sort of their version of a disco show. So there is a lot of new entertainment coming out. What's going to be interesting is that they said they're also going to be revealing some new food details. And that's something that, as a foodie, I am very, very, very much looking forward to. So I can't wait to be able to report on whatever the changes are. They're pretty well known for their food. And remember, Virgin does not do specialty restaurants. All the restaurants on Virgin are included. So to throw something new into that mix sounds like a lot of fun.
All right, staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, my friend.
As always, glad to be here.
The world is constantly changing. Your place for news is still the same. Online and on demand at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
Crystal took a 7-night sailing on Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas, where she was in a star suite. She joins us to talk about her Caribbean voyage now. Hey, Crystal.
Hey, how are you, Doug?
It's good to talk to you again. It's been a long time. So what made you want to sail this 7-night on Symphony?
This was a long time planning. My oldest daughter turned 16, and from about the time she knew about the existence of Royal Genies, she said, for my Sweet 16, I want a Royal Genie. So in place of any other kind of like party or celebration, I knew in advance. I was like, yep, that's what we're going to do for her Sweet 16. So about the minute that Royal announced or dropped the itineraries for the Caribbean over Thanksgiving. So we're talking, if we're in 2024, that was probably somewhere in 2022. We booked this 2-bedroom aqua theater suite because that's sort of your entry level suite that comes with a Royal Genie.
Royal Genie, and I'm sure we'll get to it in a bit here, but just to kind of, for clarification, is that like a butler?
It's like a butler extraordinaire.
Okay.
The way they bill it is They make all your cruise dreams come true. And I mean, I've never been in a room with a butler, so I don't know, but like they not only do they make all of your reservations for you, all your, all of your restaurant reservations, they also reserve seats for you at all of the shows. If you need anything on the fly, they can help you. I never had to call, room service. If I wanted a drink delivered to my house, to my room, if I wanted food delivered to my room, all I had to do was text the Royal Genie and they would take care of it.
I can't wait to hear more about this. As you make your way down to Miami, any pre-cruise time before boarding?
Yeah, we stayed. We flew in the day before, obviously, in the afternoon. I have two girls. It's around Thanksgiving. They wanted to do a little bit of shopping. So we stayed in the Brickell part of Miami. I can't remember which hotel we stayed in. I wouldn't recommend it. But the nice thing about it is that it was walking distance to, there's like an elevated train, like the Brickell line or something like that. And it took us all over. It took us from very close to the hotel down to the Brickell area where we could walk around the mall, have some dinner. And then, of course, no cruise is complete without that last minute pre-cruise run to Target to pick up all the things you forgot. So there was a Target right on that little train as well. So it was really, really nice. We stayed that night before in the Brickell area.
Was it one of those Hilton properties like a Hampton or a True? I know they have a couple over there.
Yeah, it was one of those, something like that.
Okay. So it's time to board the ship. You make your way to Port Miami, fairly new terminal for Royal Caribbean there in Port Miami. How was the embarkation and how long did it take you from the curb to get on the ship?
So the beautiful thing about when you're in Star Class, which is what they call the class that has the Royal Genie, is you're basically taken care of from the minute you hit the curb. So you're instructed and you get multiple emails and the Genie tells you, because we started communicating with the Genie via WhatsApp even before the cruise started, do not give your bags to a regular porter. Tell them when you get out of the, Uber, cab, whatever, that you are Star Class. And so we were directed to a Star Class specific porter / check-in, where they specially tagged our bags. We probably had to wait a little bit longer because happened to be right behind us another family that had the same Genie. So they sort of, instead of just 4 of us checking in and taking care of all of our bags with the porters, it ended up being, they were a little bit larger. So it ended up being like 10 or 11 of us that all had to get it coordinated. But then from there, you walk in, the Genie meets you, not outside, but once you're inside the terminal, your Genie meets you and you're just, it's practically smooth sailing all the way through. Just because of that other family and having to wait for a few other things, it might have been like 20 minutes. And the nice thing is that 20 minutes ends with you in the suite lounge. So they like kind of sweep you in and then you sit down in the suite lounge and you can have drinks and some snacks, which is really just cookies. But at least it's nice. It's a nice place to sit and wait until your room is ready.
Now, I'm trying to think, 'cause it's been years since we, I think, chatted last on the show here. Was your last sailing, was that Wonder of the Seas you did?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're no stranger to this class of ship, but what were your impressions as you walked on board or as you made your way around this one?
Yeah, I mean, we've also been on Symphony before. We've been on a couple of Oasis class before. We love the layout. The ship looks really good. It's really pretty. And I really there's no real appreciable difference between Symphony and Wonder. It's not like you're looking at it like, oh, this is a really older version. I think the ship looks gorgeous.
So let's talk about your stateroom then. You said you had a 2-bedroom aqua suite on this one in the Star Class. Give us your impressions of your room throughout the week. And you mentioned that the Star Class does have the Genie, but what other kind of amenities does the Star Class offer?
So I'll start with the room. So the room is, from a cruise ship standpoint, and even any place, is like enormous. You have you walk in like to like a very small hallway, and then it opens up into the main part of the stateroom, which is larger than any other stateroom we've ever been in, just that main part. It's got a much larger couch, like an L-shaped couch, and a table for four, as well as a little like side table. You've got a huge sort of, it's not really a vanity, but it's like a big cabinet that has the refrigerator that's fully stocked with any kind of drink you could want. Not alcoholic, but like soda, Red Bull, juice, whatever. And then next to the refrigerator in a cabinet is your refills. So that you never have to go without. And then, of course, if your cabinet is running low, you text the Royal Genie, and the Royal Genie just fills it up with whatever you want. If you never drink, Sprite or regular Coke, and you're like, no, I'd rather have Red Bulls and Coke Zero, then they'll just take those away and fill it up with Red Bull and Coke Zero. We also got I don't even know how many they were, but like 18 bottles. It seemed like 18 bottles. Maybe not that many. More bottles of Evian than 4 people could possibly drink in a week. And the biggest it's a bigger flat screen TV than I have in my house. And then you have the curtain that sort of looks out on the balcony, and I'll talk about the balcony in a second. And then there's the main bedroom, which is probably like a junior suite, the size of about a junior suite, maybe a little bit smaller. And it also has that sort of suite bathroom that's a larger bathroom that's got the tub and shower. And then you have a second bedroom that is not quite the size of an interior stateroom, because it's just the beds and like a big closet and, cabinets and obviously another flat screen TV. And I didn't mention it, but the master bedroom, of course, has a flat screen TV. And that's just like, that's the second bedroom. And that's got it's got like 2 beds that can be put into one, then also the 2 Pullman beds. So you could technically fit 4 people in there. And then that room has its own bathroom that isn't connected, but that bathroom is probably the same as a regular stateroom bathroom with just the shower. And just thinking of like the configuration, it's probably, because, all of these things are modularly built. So it's probably a regular stateroom bathroom module that just gets popped in there.
Wow.
And then the balcony is really the key to this stateroom. It is a wrap-around balcony so from the master bedroom, you have your own doors, like you have your own doors going out. And there are 2 kind of like regular balcony chairs, the little bit of upgraded ones, the ones that have the little ottoman, right? So you've got 2 of those and a chair. And then you go around to the main part of the balcony, which has the 2 chaise lounges, another chair, a table for 6, and then you keep going around, and it's got like a high top table with 2 tall chairs, and that part looks over to the right. We had the climbing wall, so we could watch people climbing, and then in front, which is the reason why it's called the Aqua Theater, you have the Aqua Theater in front of you. Nice. Which has its distinctive pluses and minuses. And the huge plus is you can sit on your balcony and watch the Aqua Theater show anytime you want. And we did when we were watching the Aqua Theater from the audience, we would look up and we saw people on their balconies sitting there watching the Aqua Theater show. The downside is even if you don't want to watch the Aqua Theater show, it's loud. Mm-hmm. And they rehearse every single day. So anytime if there's anything else going on in the Aqua Theater show, like they'll do the, they'll do the show for return cruisers, right? The Crown and Anchor Society that tells you, how many gold members are there, how many platinum members are there, blah, blah, blah. So that they always have like a little appreciation gathering. So that's going on there. If they didn't do the Veterans Appreciation. The Veterans Appreciation was in the Royal Promenade. But so for me, like that was a little bit of a downside, that if I wanted to sit out on my balcony, but they were even rehearsing the Aqua Theater show, I would hear that. And so that was just, if there was any downside to the room, it would be that.
I'm looking at this room right now. This balcony is amazing. Holy crap. That's awesome.
It was.
I'm curious. So were you tracking the pricing you booked it a couple of years back. So were you tracking the pricing? Like, did it go up or did it quickly sell out from when you booked it to sale time?
Yeah, I didn't track the pricing. I have a really good travel agent, and she actually texted me probably like Black Friday, because we did this, whenever it drops. Mm-hmm. It's usually early November, but not that Black Friday, but I think the Black Friday maybe last year. And she told me the price was up like 25%.
Wow.
And we had a bunch of cruises booked at the same time. So she told me, like, in total, and again, this is a plug for people who don't know, like, buy your cruises as early as possible. But at that point, we had like 3 cruises booked, including Icon, which, obviously was very sought after. We had saved like $25,000 compared to if we had booked on that quote Black Friday sale.
Amazing. Let's talk about the dining on this sailing. Now, since you were in this star class of stateroom, do they have like the coastal kitchen like an exclusive dining room for you?
Yeah, you for star class, and then there's a class below it called Sky Class. You can have all of your meals in Coastal Kitchen. For Star Class, you also get included the Ultimate Dining Package. All specialty restaurants are included.
Nice.
And as an added benefit, you can have any specialty restaurant delivered to your stateroom. For example, we ate... one night we had 150 Central Park, which is something like I was never that interested in. But I was like, well, the Genie makes all the reservations so that you can have dinner and you can get to a show. And it's okay if the timing is very close because they're reserving your seats. So we were never standing in line and then like jostling for the best seats. So, but one night I can't remember what exactly, the kids were doing their own thing. So my husband and I said, let's just eat 150 Central Park in the stateroom. And that was really nice. And that was really, really good. Coastal Kitchen, I think we had breakfast there once, and we might have had dinner there. I think we had dinner there once. I love Coastal Kitchen. I've said before when I've been on your show, it's probably my favorite restaurant on Royal Caribbean, fleet-wide, and it's still that way. It's still, even after I've done it basically every specialty restaurant at this point, including 150 Central Park, including Chef's Table, and Coastal Kitchen is still my favorite.
Did you eat in the main dining room at all during this sailing, or strictly Coastal Kitchen?
Yeah, Coastal Kitchen.
Okay.
Strictly Coastal Kitchen is special.
Gotcha. So how about, did you go to the Windjammer Marketplace, the buffet at all during this voyage? And if you did, what were your impressions of it?
Yeah, my kids love Windjammer. They would much rather eat that than anything else. So we did. We went for the embarkation lunch. And one thing that surprised me that I loved was they had cold seafood on the buffet on embarkation day. Hadn't seen that in the longest time. I saw it on Icon. Then I was like, oh, it must be like a Icon of the Seas, inaugural year kind of a thing. But no, they had it on Symphony on embarkation day. So that was really nice. And I love Windjammer. We probably did eat a couple of other times in there. I also had a Loco Fresh, the grab and go Mexican, on the close to the pool deck. It was good. All the food was very good. I think specialty dining, for the most part, it's the service and the ambiance. It's only maybe, 5 to 7% in terms of like the quality of the food. I don't think it's that much better than the Windjammer. It's better, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I never want to eat in the Windjammer because specialty dining is so much better.
With the amount of people on your voyage, did the Windjammer ever feel a little too crowded for you?
Not when I was there. I wasn't there that much, but no. Yeah. Even on embarkation day, didn't feel that crowded.
And then talk to us about the specialty restaurants you went to. Like, give us the specialty and give us like your food highlight for it.
Yeah. So 150 Central Park, we shared, I think it was like a prime rib dinner. That was really good. And then we ate at Wonderland, and we love Wonderland. The food was good. Our server was a little pushy. We were like, we've eaten here before. We would prefer to. I think so many people go to Wonderland for the first time and they have no idea what it is. And so the servers are used to just saying, hey, let me just order for you. And to back up, if people don't know, like Wonderland it's kind of a play on Alice in Wonderland. And a lot of the food is like reimagined, a reimagined, caprese salad, and a, reimagined sort of lobster thermidor. And it's excellent. But we knew what we liked. And so that was my only sort of complaint about about Wonderland.
So with like Wonderland, you're saying reimagined. Would that be like a quirky presentation?
It's not just the presentation, but also the way they prepare the food. They have these, it's like this citrus sashimi. This is one of my favorite things. I think it might be tuna or salmon. I can't remember. Cut up very fine. It's presented in, I want to say like a lime and like a chilled lime. And it's covered with some grapefruit. I don't remember the term of it, but like where it's basically just ice. It's ice with a little bit of grapefruit flavor. And it is so good. It's kind of like a take on sashimi, but completely different.
What was up after Wonderland?
After Wonderland was Chops. And Chops never disappoints. I love Chops Grill. Whatever steak, I can't remember what steak I got, but it was fantastic. That one I do have to admit, like, you're probably not going to get a Chops Grill steak in the Windjammer, but I love Chops. We probably eat at Chops every single time we sail.
Now, with all these venues you went to, like the specialty, you mentioned they were included with your Star Class, but did you have to pay anything extra for gratuities, or was all that bundled in together?
No, optional. If we wanted to add a little gratuity, we could, but it was included. If I didn't want to add anything, then, my bill at the end of the night was $0.
Gotcha. And did you have to book these restaurants ahead of time, or were you able to get righted once you got on board?
The Genie did it.
What was up after Chops?
After Chops, I think was Jamie's. Jamie's Italian, which was very good. Excellent. And then after Jamie's, I think was Izumi. And we had Izumi dinner, which was fantastic. And then I had a poke bowl, which I usually don't have. Usually we'll have like standard sushi. For some reason, I wanted the poke bowl. It was amazing. My husband didn't love the ramen. He had like a ramen and it was too, what's the term? Had too much unami, like too much of the sea. But my sushi, and my oldest daughter also had sushi. She loved it.
With, sorry, just to kind of jump in here with Jamie's Italian, how different is that as far as like Giovanni's table? Because some ships have Jamie, some have the other.
I have not eaten at Giovanni's.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough.
So yeah, I actually think I've only ever eaten at a Jamie's, at a Jamie's. And the truth be told, it's not our kids' favorite. So if it wasn't included in the ultimate dining package, we probably would have skipped it.
Gotcha. All right. What was up next?
Then we also did Izumi Hibachi, which I don't love. Like, again, it was one of these things that I never would have done it if not for the ultimate dining package, but it was on a sea day. What should we have for lunch? Let's go ahead and do it. My biggest gripe with hibachi is you have to wait for everybody before you get started. And, there's always those people who come like 20 minutes late.
Yep.
And you're just sitting there. And I really want to move on with my day. The food is fantastic. I just think the service is, and that aspect of it is lacking. So
how different is the Coastal Kitchen menu against the main dining room?
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very different. The presentation is also sort of a cut above. Things are just, I don't know how else to say it, but, the way things are plated come out beautiful. I think we went the last night to Coastal Kitchen for dinner. And it was probably lobster night in the main dining room as well. But instead of getting this just sort of like cooked lobster on maybe whatever it was, if it's like mashed potatoes or whatever, I got this beautiful, almost citrus, halfway to ceviche. I mean, it was cooked lobster, but if someone had told me that this had been like marinated in, lime juice for days, and I had gotten some other like thinly sliced vegetables that were perfectly paired and beautifully plated. And it's also just, like I said, like it's the service. I think that our server had maybe one other table they were taken care of, and the appetizers were exquisite. It's really different then. If anybody wants a comparison, it is very close to 150 Central Park. For someone who's not traveling in a suite with Coastal Kitchen privileges, if you want to get that experience, you're going to most closely approximate it by going to 150 Central Park.
Does the menu change every night?
Yes.
Okay.
And you still get the classics. Royal Caribbean changed, so you can't get the classics every night.
Yeah.
In Coastal Kitchen, if you want, like my husband loves spaghetti bolognese, like if he wanted spaghetti bolognese every day, he could have gotten that at Coastal Kitchen.
Let's talk about the entertainment on this 7-night cruise. How did it stack up for y'all?
It's great. Symphony has some of the best entertainment for us. Hero, which is the Aqua Theater show, to me is the best Aqua Theater show. And we've seen at least 2 others, if not 3 others at this point. Hairspray is one of the child that was having the Sweet 16. It's one of her favorite musicals. It's a big part of the reason why we chose this ship for her Star Class experience. We were, through the Genie, able to get kind of an after show meet and greet with the cast. She got to chat with them for a few minutes. They sang her happy birthday. We took some pictures. They had the Royal Caribbean photographer there, so I was able to buy pictures like through the actual photo, like nice pictures through the photo, whatever they call it, first focus, photo focused. So that was really, really nice. They also have Flight, which is kind of the other thing. The same, singers and dancers that do Hairspray also do Flight, which is so cool. I mean, it's for people that don't know, it's a history of flight that starts in the future. That starts with like the first manned flight to like, or aircraft or whatever, to Mars, and then ends with the Wright brothers, and it's really, really good. The ice skating show is very good. It's a lot of fun. It's a very hard to follow story. Like a lot of them are, but it's like 70s music, and the costumes are fantastic. And that was really good. They had, at one point they had holiday music. Some of the performers, 1 or 2 of the performers from Hairspray did some holiday songs in Central Park. I always love the guitarist. Central Park tends to have like a classical guitarist playing there. And it's always so good. It's just the perfect instrument for that environment. I didn't really spend much time in the pub, so I'm sure the pub singer was great. And I would kind of hear the Schooner Bar piano player in the distance. But they were always going. We had a runaway piano player too, and he was pretty good. That's the guy that kind of shows up periodically in the elevators. He was cute. He was really good. So yeah, the music and entertainment was very good.
Did you go into the attic at all?
Only for trivia.
Gotcha.
That's why they have to have Harry Potter trivia, because it's the only place big enough.
How did you do on it?
We did it better than average, but there's always a couple of ringers in the audience that just know the most obscure facts.
Let's talk about before we get to Sea Days, the casino. We mentioned that there is that little non-smoking casino now, but the main casino, how was that as you were walking through as far as the smoke situation?
Yeah, it was pretty smoky. And the downside to this class is it's still, if you want to get from one place to another on deck 4, the best and easiest way is to walk through the casino. And yeah, you've got to walk through, and you can definitely smell the smoke, and it's heavy.
Yeah. Sea days, as far as crowds and congestion, how did it stack up for you?
We really didn't, really not bad. The second sea day, we mostly hung out, and because the suites have their own suite deck with like their own hot tub. And believe it or not, that was reasonably crowded. Like the prime spots there were crowded. But the rest of the deck didn't seem too bad. I will say this, the first sea day, we were headed early to the Flow Rider. There was a reserved time for Star Class at the Flow Rider, which was kind of early. It was either like 9 o'clock. I think it was like 9 a.m. And I was like, gee, that's kind of early, but okay, I'll take it. What I noticed was I was walking along the deck and there weren't that many chairs that had their towel reserved on them. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then later on, I heard that the cruise director had been out there earlier in the morning and had been removing towels if there was nobody sitting there.
Well, there you go.
That's so somebody's out there. I don't know if that's the cruise director's job, but somebody's enforcing it.
Yeah, good for them. I want to hit one other part here with the Aqua shows and your suite you had. Was that like the ultimate viewing experience for you? It's a cool place to look at it. I mean, it all depends. Like my 10-year-old wanted to be, kind of like at SeaWorld. She wanted to be in the soak zone. Gotcha.
So the first couple of rows are designated like soak zones. And the kids absolutely love it. And then there's a couple of rows back that, you're not on the bench. You've got a regular chair. That's really nice. It all depends. And then from up above, we definitely got a different view where you could pretty much see the tightrope walker almost dead on. You get a different view of the divers. It was cool.
Let's talk about your ports of call here. So you did Perfect Day, Nassau. You also went to Falmouth, Jamaica, and Labadee. So how were those ports?
Coco Cay is like, we are not like super Perfect Day Coco Cay fans. We much prefer it the old way. So it was a very low key, we just sat at the Oasis Lagoon for a little while. My kids love the funnel cake. So they got some funnel cake. We got some drinks. We maybe hung out there for the morning. But we did a little bit of shopping. But by 1 o'clock, we were back on the ship. That pool is so cold and so is the water, especially this time of year. We were just kind of like getting off the boat, getting some sun, and it was a nice day. But we just didn't spend much time there.
Were you the only ship in port?
No. And that reminds me, I was supposed to send you a picture. I think Oasis is also there because I've got a picture of 2 side-by-side Oasis class ships, and I was like, oh, I have to send this to Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So you're back on the ship. Then your next port was a little bit away, Nassau, Bahamas, or I should say, not too far away, Nassau, Bahamas. What'd you do there?
Yeah, just shopped. The new, that new port area is really nice. I was having some hip problems, so I went to the pharmacy, got some pain medication, just did some basic shopping, and then got back. We actually rented a casita, and so we did get that Black Friday. So maybe not that Black Friday. It was like a pre-Black Friday sale. That it was a port day casita for like $99, which is a bargain. And so we spent the day mostly hanging out in our casita.
I'm curious, at a day like Nassau, where a lot of seasoned cruisers tend to typically stay on the ship, did you have the ship to yourself if you were staying on board, or did a lot of people also have that idea?
Yeah, I think that the ship was definitely fuller than you would expect in other ports. I saw people in the morning, as always, like there was a lot of people that were getting off. But yeah, the ship didn't seem empty.
After Nassau was Falmouth, Jamaica. How was your day there?
Falmouth was great. I had none of the ship excursions appealed to us. 2 in my family are not like super comfortable in the water. So something like, going to the waterfalls or, diving or, scuba or anything like that, like that's not going to be for us. So I had asked probably on one of the forums or one of the boards if anyone knew a private tour guide. And I got connected with Captain Kirk. So definitely a shout out to Captain Kirk, who we initially connected over Facebook Messenger and then converted over to WhatsApp. And so he created something for us. I realized maybe 10 days before, because he had created an itinerary for us. And then I realized maybe 10 days before that we were in port for a much shorter period of time than I realized. All aboard time was going to be like 3:30, which meant like, and because Falmouth is in the middle of the island, not close to anything. So it really meant that we didn't have a lot of time to do multiple things. And he accommodated for us like on the fly. We went to, I wanted really calm rapids. Like I said, like, I really want a lazy river. And he found the laziest one he could, but there were still rapids that were a little too intimidating for two of us. And so I went down the rapids with one of my daughters, and the other daughter and husband went on, he drove them back down the mountain, and they went on like a bamboo river raft. Just on the fly.
Yeah.
And so it was great. And he got us back in time, and it was it was a private van. So Falmouth was really fantastic.
I know if you're in Falmouth, you could actually, you could take a tour all the way to Ocho Rios if you want. It might take a little while, but how much distance was there? Like, how far did you go from the actual cruise port of Falmouth?
Yeah, so we went to Ocho Rios, and everything takes you either to Ocho Rios or Montego Bay,
Gotcha.
which are both about an hour away from Falmouth.
Okay. So,
and the place he took us to, the river he took us to was in Ocho Rios, and it was probably an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay. Gotcha. Very nice. Your final port of call was Labadee. How was your day there?
Yeah, Labadee's fantastic. We love Labadee. You have, like, the water is the perfect temperature. It has a little more like wave action than Perfect Day. I mean, Perfect Day, that water is generally pretty calm, which is fine for some, but like my kids like to ride the waves and, get tossed around, and the water is substantially warmer. I will say that we went into what's called, I think, Barefoot Beach, which is this private beach for suite guests, for Star and Sky Class guests. And if you can also buy separately, I think, a Barefoot Beach cabana. Mm-hmm. It was very nice. Nothing over the top. The lunch, because they say there's a separate lunch for, people at Barefoot Beach. It was terrible. That lunch buffet was like worse than the old Coco Cay lunch buffet. Like a couple like burgers, hot dogs, and maybe some kind of, cold salad. I was like, no, I'll just go back on the ship. I'll just be hungry and go back on the ship. The other thing about Labadee that was odd is that on Coco Cay, your Wi-Fi works. Your Wi-Fi package works because that's also included. Everybody in the room got premium Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. On Labadee, there's no Wi-Fi, which I guess is nice, but it's just interesting. Your drink package works on there. And obviously, since you're in your own little area, the service, there was always somebody to hand us drinks or water or whatever. So that was nice. But we love Labadee. The market there, they have a really extensive local market. But I will say this about it is that it's like being in a market in Haiti. Like, those vendors are aggressive. Mm-hmm. And it's really close together, and it's a little dark and claustrophobic. So we did buy some things, but it was kind of an uncomfortable experience.
I want to ask you, because a couple of months ago, I think it was like late fall, the State Department revised their travel advisory for Haiti. And of course, Labadee is on the northern tip of Haiti, a little peninsula there. Did you feel like safe and secure there? I'm only asking because I get a lot of emails about this.
Yeah, I felt really, really safe. The first is it would be very hard for whoever it is, like the gangs or criminals, to get to Labadee. Mm-hmm. Because it's over, miles of mountains, and I think there's like fences and I didn't see security, but I would be surprised if there wasn't security also paroling around there. So it's really hard to get from the capital, which is where I think all of the violence is happening, to Labadee.
Gotcha.
And then I know that cruise lines, they value their reputation. And if passengers think that the cruise line is going to endanger them, they're not going to sail.
Yeah.
So it's in their best interest to make sure their passengers are safe. And that means skipping a port, they're going to do that.
Yeah, it's good to hear it firsthand from someone who's actually there recently. So thank you for that. After Labadee, you were back to Port Miami. How was your debark process?
Beautiful. I mean, we did have to leave our stateroom by 8:00. And that's probably because what I didn't mention earlier is that we were able to go into our stateroom much earlier than 1:00 when they were all ready. It wasn't immediately when we boarded, but definitely earlier. So I think in order to help the stateroom attendant turn it around, we are asked to leave the stateroom by 8:00, but then you can just go and you can have breakfast at Coastal Kitchen. You can sit in the suite lounge for a while. I have no idea when they would kick you out. I think we left like around either, 8:30 or 9:00, because you can have the suite lounge has like little basic cold breakfast. And then if you wanted to do a heavier breakfast, hot breakfast, you could do Coastal Kitchen. And so, we were just sitting up there when we were ready. Our Royal Genie escorted us down to, to a certain point. I think like to right after we scanned our CPAS cards to get out. I think he couldn't go any further than that. And then, he handed it off. It's interesting. He handed us off to somebody else that escorted us past the crowds to go pick up our luggage.
That's good to hear, because normally, like with Yacht Club on MSC or the Haven with Norwegian, they walk you just to the gangway and then they're like, adios. So it's cool that they're actually taking another step there and getting you past the crowds of people.
It was definitely a level of service that went above and beyond what we expected.
Well, any first-time tips for sailing Star Class or Symphony of the Seas for the first time?
I would say for Star Class, if you're looking to book a really special experience for someone, you can't beat Star Class. I mean, I didn't even talk about how the Genie decorated the room for Thanksgiving, because we were there over Thanksgiving, or how he did some special things for my daughter for her Sweet 16, and he decorated, and it was a cake. And like I said, the experience with the hairspray cast. Yes, the perks are amazing. I'm not going to be one of those people that will only ever travel Star Class again. I'm perfectly fine traveling, steerage, so to speak. But for like a really special event, I think it's well worth it.
Nice. That's great. Looking back, what was the biggest highlight of this cruise for your family?
The meet and greet with the hairspray cast, and also the birthday decorations. And he also arranged a little ice cream social for my daughter and a couple of the kids that she had met in the teen club. And that was really, really sweet.
Nice. Very cool. And final thoughts of Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas.
We love Oasis Class. We love Symphony from an Oasis Class. She is probably, of the ones I've been on, my favorite. And I have been on, Wonder. I just still really love Symphony. She's a good size. She's still in really good shape. And if you're looking for, you can't go wrong. If you're looking for an Oasis Class ship, you cannot go wrong with Symphony.
All right. We've been talking with Crystal about her 7-night cruise on Symphony of the Seas. And she also just launched the Luxury Cruising podcast. You can check that out where you listen to your favorite podcast. I always like to have another cruise podcast in the mix there. So congratulations, Crystal, on the launch there. And thanks again for coming on.
Great talking to you, Doug.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,